Welcome to the Retire Right podcast with Larry Heller. You deserve complete financial advice. There's no acceptable alternative if you want a plan to live well and on your terms. Complete financial advice equals complete peace of mind. Now, let's get into this week's podcast episode.
Hello and welcome to podcast number 3. We're going to be going over mindset, one of the 4 pillars of your complete financial house. Now, Larry, before we jump into this specific pillar, would you remind our audience what those 4 pillars of your complete financial house is, please?
Sure. The first pillar is mindset, which we're going to talk about today, followed by strategy, tactics, and finally progress.
All right, well, mindset seems to be vitally important, which is why I'm assuming it's number 1. So unpack that for me. Tell me what are the components of having the right mindset?
So I break down mindset into 3 categories. The first, vision, the second, purpose, and the third, discipline.
Okay, well, what do you mean by vision? I mean, is this an actual exercise in projecting out into the future?
Yes. So vision, when clients come in or prospective clients come in, usually the first thing that they're saying or they're showing me is their investments. And we actually stop them because before we can even decide what we're doing with their investments, I want to hear what their financial goals are. So one of the ways that I do this is really have them visualize what their goals are. I ask them to tell me, or paint me a picture of their life 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Ask them, what do they want to be doing in the second phase of their life? What's really important to them? And it's interesting to start to listen to husbands and wives describe what their goals are. Sometimes they're on the same page. Sometimes they're not on the same page. So we're trying to now establish what their goals are so then we can eventually line up their investments with each of these financial goals or dreams and what they have.
Larry, what happens when a husband and wife aren't on the same page?
Well, it's interesting. Sometimes we're kind of asked to be the referee or the coach in between. We just had a client basically came to us about 6 months ago, and they were in last week. And they bought a few pieces of real estate, and they have mortgages on them. And the wife is having a great time doing this. And now the husband is now getting concerned with the debt and wants to really, look at their retirement plan and how are they going to retire if they have all these houses. So we're kind of going through and showing them how it would work if they kept the houses versus how it would work if they sell the houses, so they can see in real life the numbers and make some decisions. So we try not to take one person's side over the other when it comes to what's their goals, but that's kind of what we do to kind of lead them down to hopefully they can come to a joint conclusion themselves.
Larry, would you mind helping the audience maybe understand that process a little bit more? Would you mind providing us with a few of the questions that trigger the opportunity for them to start seeing later down the road?
Well, I always tell them to start with a clean path. We have these 5 glass boards in our conference rooms that we actually write on them. And I try not for them to think about specific dollar amounts and what they have, but really I thought we'd paint the picture. Tell me where you're gonna live 5 years from now. What are you gonna be doing 10 years from now? What do you want to provide? Do you want to provide anything for your children or grandchildren? Those are the type of questions that we start to ask. And they start to open up. We've had clients that have said, I don't really want to work anymore, or I really want to stop working in 2 years. The wife's like, that we can't do that. We can't afford to do that. So we're having those conversations and trying to put the goals up front.
So as you continue to have these long-term relationships with your clients, which I know you do, how do you check up on where this vision is? So when you're meeting with somebody 3 to 5 years after they've engaged you, what is that meeting process like to review that vision?
Well, it's really reviewed at least annually because you can't wait 3 to 5 years and review it again because you don't know if you're going to be on track. So each year we're actually reviewing each one of the goals, and they could be separately. One could be I want to stop working or pare down the amount of I work by a certain age. Another one could be I want to purchase a boat or a second home, or I want to be able to provide some money for my children's, my grandchildren's college education. So each year when they come in, we've put together a game plan based upon what they can save to each one of their goals, and we're seeing if they're on track. Sometimes they have these great ideas and they want to do all this, but they're not willing to make the commitments to each one of their goals. Other times clients love this, and they're really each year they want to come in and see how much they put away and are they on track to making their goals. And things change along the way. We've actually had a client call us from Florida because their goal was for a retirement house. And when they went looking, it was more than they thought, and they wanted to make sure that their other goals weren't going to be impacted if they increased the purchase on this home. So it's done on an ongoing basis, not just 3 to 5 years down the road. That'd be too late to make sure that you're on track.
Well, I'm glad that you stay on top of your clients like that. And so you've summed up what vision aspect is of the mindset. And you said there were 3 parts of the mindset. Let's talk about number 2, which you said was purpose.
Yeah, so now you really have to see what's really important to you. So when we start putting these on our glass boards, what's really going to be important to each spouse? Sometimes we can accomplish all the goals. Sometimes we can't. I have a client, and the wife is very adamant about putting away for the grandchildren's college education, but the husband still wants to travel and is not willing to sacrifice that for the other one. So we have to really determine, okay, what is really going to be the purpose for each of these goals? What's really important to you? They have to determine them, and then we write them down, and we prioritize them, and we set time frames for each one of them.
Give us an example. Can you tell us a story about how you've actually done this with one of your clients?
Yeah, so we had probably about 10 years ago, 2 teachers who worked very hard, saved some money, but luckily up here in New York, they've had nice pension plans. They lived in a modest home, and their goal was to be able to move closer to their children in a brand new home. And they didn't really know if that was going to be possible. So we ran all the numbers. We put a game plan together, a strategy together, a time frame together. This was really their only financial dream. And 5 years later, they were able to sell their house and buy a new house. And that was really what was critical and what was important to them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And what a great celebration of life and hard work that you help them really figure that out. And I think a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Larry, there's a lot of permission that your clients are seeking from you because you are the number guy here. How often are people asking you those sorts of questions like we talked about with the vision or that exact example with purpose?
Well, it's interesting because you say number guy. So that's kind of what people think of a financial advisor or a wealth manager, as we'd like to call ourselves. Excuse me. But we're more than just a numbers guys. A lot of time people tell us we're part numbers guys, part psychiatrists, because we really need to find out a lot about them. So it's not just the numbers. We're going to know. I tell clients a lot of times we're going to know more about them probably than anyone else but their doctors. Once they know them and once they can figure out what their goals are, the numbers are the easy part. It's really the game plan, the strategy, writing them down, committing to it. That's the hard part.
Gotcha. So we talked about vision and now purpose, which are two of the three facets of the mindset, which is one of the four pillars of that financial house. Let's talk about number three, which is discipline, because this is probably where you really need to make sure that you have buy-in from the clients.
Yes. So it's all great when they have these potential goals and dreams out there. But now is where the number part comes in. Is how can we make this reality? So we have to delve into their income. We have to delve into their expenses. They have to commit to a plan. And sometimes they're all gung ho, and then when they go back and they're like, oh, you know what? We ended up spending more than we thought, and they're not on track. So they have to have the discipline to be able to achieve their goals, and we make them accountable when we have our review and we're going through them and seeing if they're on track.
Yeah.
If they're not on track, the good thing is a lot of the software we use is interactive. If we have a game plan where they want to retire at, let's say, age 65, and they're not doing what they wanted to do, and now I'm saying, you know what, it's probably not going to work until you're 67. Most of the times, actually, interesting enough, it works the other way. Is when they see their numbers out there and they see it's working at 65, they're coming back and they're saying, okay, what else can I change or adjust to make it work at 64? So somehow or other, this whole process empowers them, and we find that they're more inclined to make it happen because before, and there was just this nebulous notion of retiring somewhere, and they didn't really know how that was going to work. So now, when we're putting the numbers out there, they commit to it. They commit to it more than they did before.
Well, that's the whole reality aspect of it, right? That's why I think it's so phenomenal that you have this so interactive, because it does make this nebulous, number-focused, out there thing a reality to something that they're going to truly be able to live. Now, one of the most important things about these podcasts is for our listeners to be able to identify as somebody who fits into one of these categories or truly wants to, build this complete financial house with you. Would you mind telling us a story of somebody who did the discipline in the way that you would really want them to, because then their outcome was more successful?
Well, one story that comes to mind: a single male who was working, who was in his late 50s, living in Manhattan, and his position was no longer, the department was being closed, and he basically said, "I want to retire now." And I was kind of surprised because he gave us what he thinks he could spend living in Manhattan and live on a monthly basis. And when we looked at that, we said, this is extremely tight, going to be hard to stick to. Well, now it's 5 years later, and he's been retired since 58. He's 63, and he's stuck to every number that he said he was going to stick to based upon the game plan that we provided for him in order to be able to retire. So he's living his life, enjoying, and he stuck to the discipline.
Fantastic. Well, let's so if people want to do a little bit of work maybe before they come into you, or they've heard this podcast and say, oh my gosh, Larry, you're the kind of guy I've been looking for. Your team is what I'm looking for. Really, what should people do from here?
Well, they contact us and set an appointment. But when they come in here, they should be open to our complete financial house advice plan. That we're going to look at everything, come up with a holistic financial plan for them, not just, okay, I want to make a little bit more money on our investments, and be able to work with a financial planning organization that's going to keep them on track, hold them accountable, and hopefully get them to reach all their financial goals and dreams.
Magnificent. Well, Larry, thank you very much for breaking down the first section of the first pillar, I should say, of the four pillars of your complete financial house. We talked about mindset today, vision, purpose, and discipline. Is there anything that you want to end with?
Nope, just keep on plugging, and don't think that you can't accomplish what your goals and your dreams are.
Wonderful. Well, Larry, thank you for your time today.
You're welcome, Matt.
And we will see you guys very soon for episode number 4.